Alright, y'all, so I've got here a list of all the 2016 shows that have finished that I haven't watched all of yet, but also haven't dropped, with the special number 32 punishment round being ReZero, which I did drop, but nobody wants to shut up about it, so I feel like I'm going to have to at least try to watch more of it. I'm going to use a random number generator to decide which one I watch. And I get 17, which is Flying Witch. Alright, I've heard that one's great. Alrighty, well, it took me 2 nights of straight vegging the fuck out, but I watched all of Flying Witch, and it was pretty okay. I do not have a lot to say about it. It is a straight-up Iyashikei soothing show, where not much of anything really happens. It's sort of in the vein of stuff like Yokohama Shopping Log or Aria, though I guess more the former than the latter. It's just a very slow, pleasant, feel-good show. I've long had an issue with like straight up Iyashikei shows that I almost never finish them. So this is kind of a rare case where I actually watched the whole thing, mostly by sheer force of will. Because these Iyashikei shows, I definitely don't think that most of them are designed to be watched all at once, and people will often argue that you shouldn't watch them all at once, but that's exactly the problem for me, is that, like, you know, it's the kind of show that I really would have to be in the mood for to watch an episode, and it's not a mood I ever really find myself in. Like, the mood where I feel like these shows are meant to take a load off. You know, you had a stressful day at work, at the office, you come home, you watch an episode once a week of Iyashikei, it makes your worries slip away, and you just veg out and enjoy a show. And I don't really have that kind of a high-tension, stress lifestyle. For me, anime is more about sitting down and marathoning a show. You know, not to say that I don't think these shows are any good marathon. It's just that, like, I feel like the atmosphere of Iyashikei has less to do with being, like, a great, involving show and more to do with, like, the state of mind you're in when you watch it. It's more about relaxing and taking a load off. And so, like, there are a lot of slice-of-life shows that I'm a big fan of. Shows like Hidamari Sketch. But those are usually have a little bit more comedy, a little bit more character interaction to them. And, like, I guess it just fits with, like, my interests better. Whereas with Flying Witch, my problem with this show is that everything in it is very pleasant, and it has nothing else to express but pleasantness. Like, every character is always just nice and in a good mood. Every scene is just characters smiling, doing something mundane, having a good time. There are no other emotions in this show other than pleasantness. Which is kind of apart from most Iyashikei, because most Iyashikei shows are usually more about a nostalgia feeling, some sense of yearning or longing. If you watch a show like, again, Yokohama Shopping Log, it usually has these sort of pangs of nostalgia to it. Aria usually has its bittersweet moments. You know, I'm used to Iyashikei maybe having some other, you know, a lot of them are just kind of very sentimental, which I'm not always into. I'm not into, like, the over-sentimentality, and I'm glad this show didn't have any of that. But it is always just pleasant. It's always just a nice, fun, happy time. The show and its characters don't really have much personality beyond that. It's just kind of watching a bunch of people just chill out and have a good time. And, the strongest thing about this show is the production values are unbelievably good. The music is fantastic. Definitely one of my favorite soundtracks of the last few years. I'm a huge fan of, like, folksy soundtracks and shit, so I've been listening to this while going to bed for the last couple days, to the OST. The character designs are beautiful, and they're always drawn perfectly. Like, every single frame of this show is gorgeous to look at. There's not like a ton of movement, so it's not like there was any like crazy animation stuff going on, but the characters always look perfectly on model, gorgeous at all times, and the character designs are beautiful. All the women are extremely gorgeous in this show. It's one of what I call like a secretly perverted show in a way, or secretly sexual, where like, even though it has no fan service at all, there's unmistakably all the women have like really big boobs, and they always wear like tightly fitting clothes. So there's just lots of shots where it's like, just by the nature of how the characters look, it's always like subtly sexual. Which I am sure there's a lot of people who picked up on who love it for that reason. But it's the kind of thing where it's like sneaky, and it looks classy, and the show gets away with it. But they definitely knew what they were drawing with these characters, because they're all fucking beautiful. And the artwork is gorgeous. It's just all around very pleasant to look at and listen to. It's which goes a long way with a show like this, where most of it is just kind of drinking in the atmosphere. But again, the characters have so little like in the way of personality or things that make them memorable, that like I can't see ever thinking about them again, or really thinking about this show again. By far the best parts in this show are whenever they would really go in on the witch stuff, the witchery, because it's a show about witches, and like, an amazing amount of this show is just about, like, cooking and or sleeping. Like, there's a lot of episodes that'll just be, like, long segments of characters, like, picking vegetables and then cooking them. It's one thing to just go between, like, more witchy stuff and more slice-of-life-y stuff, but almost all the slice-of-life-y stuff is always about cooking. Which is fine. Obviously, I love food and I love cooking, but it was very unfortunate for this experience, because I kept seeing them eat, and then I would go make myself food, and I made the horrible mistake of my last grocery shopping trip of trying new things, and all the new things I've been trying have been terrible. So everything I ate while watching this show was disgusting, and that didn't help. I actually put it, like, the reason I spent 2 nights watching it is that the first night I was trying to veg out, but my neck kind of hurt, so, like, I just wasn't comfortable enough laying on the couch, and I feel like the state of mind with a show like this is so important to enjoying it, that it was legitimately hard to enjoy just because my neck kind of hurt, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this tomorrow when I can, like, properly veg out. So yeah, that affects it in a funny way. But, there's no, like, I don't have anything, like, too negative to say about the show. It's like, nothing in it bothered me. It's not like I was ever going, like, man, this is dumb or anything like that. It looks so good and sounds so good, and is... Although I will say I didn't really care for any of the voice acting. I found Makoto's voice like just a tad annoying, but not in like a overly annoying way. But like, just none of the voices stood out to me all that much. And there was like one part where I got legitimately annoyed, which is where the characters, there's like one episode where 2 of the girls, one eats a candy that'll make her cry nonstop for an hour, and the other one eats one that'll make her laugh. And as that joke went on, I got real sick of hearing them crying and laughing. But I will say that when this show did comedy, which it doesn't do often, when it does it really well. There were definitely moments where I laughed out loud. The fucking Mandrake scene in the first episode is absolutely hilarious. And there were lots of little moments when it decided to be comedic that it was really, really funny. And the witchery stuff was really cool and interesting, because it was usually kind of inventive. They rode on like a sky whale. That was awesome. Just little things. Anything that was like magic was like, oh wow, that's cool. But then like a whole episode would be like, and now we're just cooking vegetables. And I'm like, okay. the witch aspect is the strongest aspect. Why don't we stick to that more? I mean, I like the idea of contrasting that against normal everyday life, because it kind of creates the sense that, the best part about the witchery in this show is that it's all very normalized. Like, characters are just kind of like, oh, you're doing magic? Neat. You know, like, that's the typical reaction. I think it was a great setting to have that in, to have it in, like, this country town where people are just kind of like, yeah, witches. That's adorable. But at the same time, nothing about the show stood out to me in such a way that I think I would go back to this one over another Iyashikei show. Like if I was gonna return to one, I'd return to like Aria or Hidamari Sketch, or something a little bit more inventive and consistently entertaining, or with more memorable characters. Because for me, really, like, with Slice of Life and Iyashikei, it's all about the characters. How much do I like the characters individually, or how good is their chemistry together? And in this show, the characters felt pretty flat, and none of them really made me, like, want to return. Not to say that any of them were bad. They're all pretty adorable, but, like, none of them's... I don't remember anyone's name. I remember Chinatsu, and Makoto is the main girl. And they do say their names a lot, so it's not like that's why. But anyway, yeah, it was alright. I'd give it a strong 6 to a light 7. And that's, let's watch another one. Time for round 2. 17, that's what I got last time. Why does it keep giving me 17? 7? What's 7? 7's Bubuki Buranki, which I spelled wrong. Let's go watch it. Well, I watched up through episode 4 of Bubuki Buranki, perhaps a little in excess of what I really needed to figure out I didn't want to finish it. When this show came out, I was excited by the fact that it's a CG show that has pretty cool character designs and fun animation directing. It feels very heavily influenced by Hiroyuki Imaishi and Studio Trigger, which is fitting because the studio that makes it is a CG studio in the same building as Trigger, who has worked with them on a lot of their shows. So it was interesting to see, you know, another studio sort of copying their style animation-wise, and it's one of the better-looking CG shows. It's one of the only ones I've found watchable. But plot-wise, it's not interesting at all. Like, the show has pretty good action scenes and action directing, especially in the first 2 episodes. 3 and 4 were kind of boring, and, like, just none of the characters or the story are interesting at all. It's very childish. It really feels like something that I could imagine myself having loved as a kid, just because it has lots of action, and the fact that it's CG, actually, I probably would have loved about it. But, like, there's no depth to the story at all. It's just, like, a bunch of kids fighting a bunch of adults. Very corny. The attitudes of the characters are, like, over the top and cheesy, but not in, like, a fun way, just in kind of a groan-worthy way. And yeah, there's nothing to it, really. It's just an action show for kids, is really the impression I got. So I got real bored. Like, by the end of episode 3, I was pretty sure I didn't want to watch anymore, but I gave it one more, and episode 4 was really corny, so, so that's enough for that one, I guess. What number are we gonna get this time? 30. That is Iron-Blooded Orphans. That's a long one, so I guess we're gonna be at this for a few days. Hey, so obviously I filmed all those other parts a few days ago before I got my hair cut, and I never got around to watching Iron-Blooded Orphans because it's long and I wasn't that enthusiastic about watching it immediately. And then I remembered that they're making a second season of that, so, like, you know, it's not really complete, so fuck it. I took it off the list. I'm gonna generate something else. 22. That is... Where is it? Kuromukuro. I am interested to know how that is. I've heard mixed things about it, so I'll check it out. Alright, well, I didn't realize that Kuromukuro is also still airing. It's a 26-episode show, so I took that off the list. Number 8. Number 8 is Oshiete Galko-chan. That should be quick and easy, alright. Alrighty, well, I watched all of Oshiete Galko-chan, and it was a pretty dang good time. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of I guess the way I would describe this show is that at first glance it seems like a sort of raunchy comedy show. It's a show that's about these high school girls basically discussing, you know, not necessarily perverse topics, but like sexual topics or things dealing with their bodies and stuff like that, but in a very playful and kind of innocent way, where it's like the show has a dirty mind, and the characters think they do, but all the characters are actually fairly innocent and are often talking about things they don't even totally understand themselves. But I think that really the heart of this show isn't really a comedy so much as it is just a slice of life show that happens to be willing to tackle the topics that most slice of life shows wouldn't. And I think that's the biggest reason that I ended up enjoying it a lot as a fan of that type of show, who is often somewhat frustrated by the fact that, you know, anime characters don't poop, you know, to put it simply. Like, a lot of anime, like, a lot of shows like this where it's like about a bunch of cute girls sitting around, you know, having fun and doing nothing. Like, they just kind of treat them as like these goddesses, you know, these moe characters that don't really have humanity to them in a way. Some shows do it better than others. And, you know, some shows are really good at humanizing their characters. But this one is like, you know, the topics of conversation are usually kind of lewd and stuff. But it's not really like a panty and stocking or something where it's like throwing it in your face that it's lewd topics. It's more like, hey, here's some conversations that real people might actually have that you don't see a lot of in the public eye. Because these things are seen as like things you're not supposed to talk about, even though we all talk about them, you know. And so the show kind of plays with that, and it's a lot of fun. And the main characters are all like really surprisingly likable and have a little bit of depth to them for a show that is 12 8-minute episodes. And, you know, the characters are introduced as like these stereotypes. All of them have like nicknames that are just like, Galko is the main girl, and she's supposed to be a gyaru, which is like the Japanese stereotype of like a bimbo, essentially. She's like spray-tanned, blonde hair, huge tits, and everyone thinks that she must sleep with tons of guys. But the main joke is that she's not actually like that. You know, she dresses that way, but she's actually like pretty innocent and like really nice and kind-hearted, and her dream is to become a mother and stuff. And there's the otaku girl, and the rich girl who's like just kind of airheaded. And like, even though they're presented as being like stereotypes, they actually end up feeling like fully fleshed out characters as the show goes on, particularly Galko and Otako. And there's some like actually moments of them having like little heartfelt moments together, just a couple of times, which helps to solidify the feeling of their reality. And the show also has a surprisingly detailed cast of, like, supporting characters who often don't even show up for more than, like, a minute or two. You know, like, there'll be random characters, like random classmates or random other people who are around who have, like, great character designs, like a lot of them better than the main characters, because the main characters kind of look goofy and like they're meant for a comedy show, whereas a lot of the side characters are just like really good character designs, and they'll have like strong personalities that are instantly memorable, and they're on screen for like 1 minute. And I was really surprised by that. It's one of those shows where every single classmate in the class has like a distinct design, and they all look like they're important characters. You know, there's no just like random background people, which is always very appreciated. And it's just funny to see the different interactions between like the guys in the class are all just like horn dogs. All they're thinking about is like the sexual stuff. But again, none of them are actually experienced. I think this show, like, I think it's perfect that this show is set in high school because of the fact that it's the characters are all sort of discovering these things for the first time, like these sort of, you know, touchy subjects, and like coming to terms with them. And so to them, it's all very risque and like taboo. But they're not like, you know, none of the characters are actually sexual. They're just like learning about this stuff and talking about it, which is basically what people did in high school when you're first learning these things and it all matters, where, you know, sex is a big mystery and stuff like that. So I think it works surprisingly well with its setting of high school. It was just an all-around really fun show. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, there's not so much going on in a 12 episode 8 minute per episode show that it would go far beyond that, but it was definitely pretty pleasant and one of the better slice of life shows that I've seen so far this year. Alrighty, let's see what the next random show is going to be. 27. Have we done 27 already? No, it's Tonkatsu DJ Agetarou, another short one that I can bust out very quickly. Nice, let's do it. I just finished watching Tonkatsu DJ Agetarou, and it was a pretty good time. It was a fun little show, 9-minute episodes. Essentially a sports anime in the tone and the things that like the way it presents itself, but about music, about a kid who is works at a tonkatsu shop and becomes a DJ and constantly relates these two things to each other in really hilarious and goofy ways. This show has a very, like, over-the-top comedic slant to its presentation of, like, becoming an artist and moving up in your talents and taking your hobbies seriously and stuff. It's very goofy and very quickly paced, but a lot of fun and speaks well to the heart of artistry and stuff like that. One of my favorite things about this show is that it's about DJ culture and like musical culture, and it has all these like terms in it that are basically just American slang terms that this show uses as though they're like technical terminology taken very seriously. There's a whole episode where Agetarou becomes obsessed with the concept of chill out, because someone explains to him, like, oh, wait, there's the chill. If you want to make people relax, it's chilling out. And he takes it as, like, this technical term and becomes obsessed with trying to achieve the chill out. And it's fucking hilarious. And the show is pretty self-aware about the fact that it's handling things in such a goofy way. But it's a surprisingly, like, worldly show. Like, it has you know, American characters in it. It has a Korean character. It has a lot of knowledge about the subjects it's talking about. It knows it, like, whoever wrote this definitely knows a lot about music and a lot about, you know, music history and stuff like that, and what being a DJ is all about, as well as, I guess, a decent amount about tonkatsu as well. And just kind of relates to him in like a goofy Karate Kid kind of way, where it's like, you know, him cleaning the store gives him the ability to scratch discs and shit like that. But like, yeah, it's, even though it's goofy, it's built on a solid foundation of like stuff that actually makes sense and is real. And for that reason, it's pretty entertaining. It's got some pretty decent music. It would be nice if there were more songs in the show, because there's a lot of performances and you pretty much always hear the same couple of tracks, but that's kind of understandable for what's basically just like a low budget, you know, Flash cartoon with barely any animation. But for what it's worth, the music in there is pretty cool and, you know, sounds like good DJing songs. A bunch of tracks that easily communicate the styles of music that the characters are supposed to be playing. So that was nice. And overall, it was a pretty good time. I'd give it a, like, strong 6 to a light 7. It's pretty memorable conceptually, if not particularly, like, for having strong writing or characters, so much as just being a fun show with a cool concept. And, you know, might be worth checking out the OST or something. And, yeah. I wouldn't mind if they made even another season of it, because even though it kind of, you know, it kind of covered everything it needed to without getting old, I also felt like, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing the rest of Agetarou's journey of conquering the rival character in the show and trying to get the girl that he's in love with. to recognize his existence more than she currently does. So yeah, pretty good time.